Looking back now, I realized that the husband I rescued had finally regained his memory. He brought me to the imperial city, where I discovered he was the third prince who had wandered lost in the wilderness. A prince who already had a betrothed, a noble lady from a distinguished family, on the day I was summoned to the palace for imperial rewards. He warned me with cold authority. Elena has graciously agreed to allow you the position of concubine. You should know your place and be grateful. All eyes were upon me, waiting for my humiliation to unfold. The whispered conversations drifted through the grand hall like autumn leaves. Surely that country woman doesn't dare dream of becoming the third prince's consort. How presumptuous of her to covet a position far above her station, simply because she once aided His Highness. I kept my eyes downcast, saying nothing. The marble floor beneath my knees was cold and unforgiving. Then came the moment when His Majesty asked what reward I desired. I pressed my forehead firmly against the stone tiles in the deepest bow. Your humble subject desires 10,000 taels of gold, 1,000 acres of fertile land, a grand manor, and perhaps, I paused deliberately, several male companions to attend me. Before I could finish speaking, the whispered conversations ceased entirely. Prince Adrian's face darkened, like storm clouds gathering on a summer evening. The silence in the great hall was profound. Every gaze fell upon me as if I were some strange creature that had wandered in from the wilderness. Their expressions ranged from shock to scandalized disbelief. I remained unmoved by their stares. Adrian's brow furrowed deeply as he hissed under his breath. Serafina, you must not speak such nonsense before His Majesty. I paid him no attention, maintaining my rigid kneeling position. His Majesty, whose health had been declining for months, coughed several times before speaking in measured tones. Lady Song, we have heard that you and Prince Adrian were wed according to country customs, rather than these material possessions. Would it not be better if we were to formally decree your marriage? Sharp intakes of breath echoed throughout the hall. The assembled courtiers marveled at what they saw as extraordinary fortune. A peasant woman elevated to the position of imperial princess consort, a blessing that could only come from lifetimes of virtue. Everyone expected my immediate, grateful acceptance, Adrian included. He stared at me intently, though I could not read the thoughts behind his eyes. But I never so much as glanced in his direction. I remained prostrate, then spoke with unwavering conviction. Your Majesty honors this humble woman beyond measure, but I am far too lowly to be worthy of the third prince's golden nobility. I desire only these worldly goods. I have no wish to become his consort. My words cut through the air like a blade, seeming to freeze time itself. After what felt like an eternity, His Majesty's voice resonated through the hall. Your request is granted. I kowtowed deeply in gratitude for his imperial grace. When I finally raised my head, Adrian's expression was a mask of barely contained shock and something that might have been wounded pride. The complexity in his gaze held disbelief that cut deeper than any blade. I had first encountered Adrian 2 years prior, during one of my medicinal gathering expeditions in the mountains. There, hidden among the undergrowth, I discovered him gravely injured and unconscious. Hovering between life and death, my father had always taught me that a healer's heart must extend compassion to all. I brought the stranger to my medical clinic, where I tended his wounds with careful attention. When consciousness returned to him, his memory had vanished completely. He remembered nothing of his past life. With nowhere else to go, I offered him shelter. He remained at the clinic, working to repay his debt while we sought anyone who might recognize him. Days turned to months, and months became 2 years of shared existence. During this time, our hearts grew close through countless shared moments. He would stand as my protector when difficult patients, or their families became troublesome. When I became lost in mountain storms, he would brave treacherous weather to find me. To say I remained unmoved would be false. With the blessing and witness of our neighbors, we exchanged marriage vows. Yet 3 months after our wedding, he vanished without warning. When next I saw him, he had transformed into the Golden Prince, standing beside his intended bride, Lady Elena. Elena was renowned as the daughter of the former chancellor. At 5 years of age, tragedy struck when her father was murdered by conspirators he had exposed. Her entire family perished, leaving her the sole survivor. His Majesty, in his mercy, brought her into the palace where her maternal aunt, noble consort Grace, raised her with loving care, though not born to royalty. She was cherished by all the palace ladies. Tales of her gentle disposition and gracious nature were known throughout the capital. When we first met, her warmth seemed genuine enough. "You must be Sister Serafina," she exclaimed with apparent delight. "I cannot thank you enough for saving Adrian. Please accept this small token of my gratitude." She approached, carrying an ornate gift box. The moment my fingers touched the lacquered surface, sharp pain shot through my hands. Instinctively, I released my grip. The box crashed to the marble floor with a resounding crack. Elena's piercing scream accompanied the scatter of gold ornaments and precious jade across the tiles. "Elena." Adrian rushed to her side, his hands frantically checking for injuries. Then his furious gaze turned upon me. "Serafina, Elena prepared this gift especially for you. How dare you display such crude manners? Apologize to her immediately." I stood frozen in place. Adrian's expression was like late winter snow on mountain peaks, distant, cold, unreachable. In his clear eyes, I saw only disapproval and disappointment. The warmth that once filled his gaze when he looked at me had vanished forever. The Adrian who had once seen only me in all the world would never return. So I bowed my head and remained silent. I offered no apology, no explanation. I did not tell him that I carried his child, that I had been with child for 2 months already. The palace banquet continued its elaborate course, though an undercurrent of tension flowed beneath the surface merriment. Conversations buzzed with barely concealed curiosity, and I felt countless eyes tracking my every movement. I paid them no attention. After respectfully requesting permission from the Empress, I rose to leave. Halfway through my departure, someone blocked my path. Adrian stood before me, his face dark with suppressed emotion. His voice carried accusation when he spoke. "Serafina, how long will you continue this charade? Elena accidentally damaged your little doll and has already apologized." Elena appeared behind him, tears still glistening on her cheeks like morning dew. "Sister Serafina, I know you resent me for breaking your precious keepsake. It was entirely my fault." Her voice trembled with what seemed like genuine remorse. "But you cannot ask His Majesty for such things. You are making Adrian appear faithless and dishonorable. I'll surrender the position of principal consort to you gladly. I am willing to accept the status of concubine. Please don't be angry anymore." I regarded them both with cool detachment. The doll they spoke of so carelessly was the last gift from my father. During his final illness, he had used his remaining strength to craft a small clay figure with his own hands. "After I am gone," he had whispered, "this little guardian will keep you company in my place." I had treasured it beyond all material possession. When Adrian brought me to the capital and housed me in his residence, I first requested permission to leave. His impatience was evident. "Where could you possibly go in an unfamiliar city?" he had demanded. "I understand, Elena's presence troubles you." but the situation cannot be changed. Elena is generous enough to accept your presence. You'll remain here under my protection. I forbid you to go anywhere else. To prevent my escape, he ordered my belongings confiscated and stored away. This included my father's precious clay figure. He knew its significance to me perfectly well. When I encountered that treasured keepsake again, it was clenched between the jaws of Elena's hunting hound. The clay figure lay shattered, half its body missing, the remainder dangling pathetically from the massive dog's mouth. The beast bared its teeth at me menacingly, while saliva dripped from my father's final gift. The sight was both absurd and heartbreaking. My father had always emphasized the importance of emotional control. Worry harms the spleen, sorrow damages the lungs, anger injures the liver, and fear weakens the kidneys. He would say, teaching me to preserve my health through inner peace. He also spoke of elemental balance. Fire conquers, metal, warning me against anger lest it disrupt my spiritual harmony. Throughout my life, I had maintained emotional equilibrium. But in that moment, I chose to abandon such restraint. When Adrian and the others arrived, they found me wielding a stone I had gathered from the courtyard. I brought it down upon the dog's skull with deliberate force, once, twice, again and again. My movements were efficient and purposeful. After one piercing yelp, the animal fell silent forever. Crimson droplets spattered across my face and clothing, yet I remained eerily calm throughout. The onlookers stared at me as if witnessing madness itself. But I felt no urge to scream or weep or tear at my hair in dramatic fashion. I simply retrieved the broken clay figure from the beast's mouth, carefully cleaning it with my silk handkerchief. Then I placed that same bloodied cloth over the dog's motionless form. If blame must fall somewhere, let it rest upon those who enabled such cruelty. The world contains enough suffering. I had merely delivered this creature from its misguided existence, cradling the dog's head through the silk covering. I approached Elena, who had paled to the color of winter frost. I return your property to you, I said without expression. The consequence of this incident was Elena's night. Long hysteria. Adrian spent every moment comforting her, casting only troubled glances in my direction. Meanwhile, I gathered some jewelry from my chambers and quietly left the residence. The guards hesitated when they saw my blood-stained appearance, allowing me to pass without challenge. In truth, Adrian had never truly imprisoned me. He had simply confiscated my possessions and assigned servants to monitor my movements whenever I ventured outside. Now that my most precious belonging had been returned to me, and the chaos had scattered my usual watchers, I walked freely through the gates. My first destination was the pawnbroker's shop, where I exchanged the jewelry for silver coins. Then I purchased a swift horse and travel supplies, hoping to flee the city before discovery. The first stages proceeded smoothly enough, but just as I thought myself safely beyond the city walls, Adrian appeared with his retinue to block my path. The pre-dawn wind carried winter's bite. Having spent the entire night soothing Elena's distress, exhaustion marked every line of Adrian's face. "Have you finished this tantrum?" He rubbed his temples wearily. "Come back with me." "You think this is merely a tantrum?" My voice remained level. "What else would you call it?" "You are not worth such effort," I replied coolly. Serafina. His complexion darkened like an approaching storm. After taking a steadying breath, he continued, "I acknowledge you've been wronged in this matter, but Elena bore no malice. Her dog simply wandered into my chambers and retrieved that clay figure on its own. You shouldn't have blamed her. Besides, you've already killed the animal. Can't we consider this matter settled?" The dog had been named Tempest, a fitting name for such a destructive creature. I met his gaze directly. "Do you truly believe Elena was innocent in this?" Adrian looked away, his voice strained. Elena isn't capable of such deliberate cruelty, I laughed, though the sound held no warmth. Some people truly could be loved without reason or logic. This truth became even more apparent during our confrontation at the palace banquet. Elena's theatrical sobbing drew curious courtiers like moths to flame. Sister Serafina, I know you've never forgiven me for Tempest's actions. I am truly sorry. It was never intentional. Her tears flowed more freely. Tempest had always been destructive, but I never imagined he would destroy something so precious to you. As his mistress, the fault lies entirely with me. Beat me, punish me. I accept whatever judgment you decree. Elena possessed an ethereal beauty that made her tears all the more compelling. Adrian's expression remained coldly unsympathetic as he addressed me. Elena's noble birth should command respect, yet she humbles herself before you with apologies. Forgive her and cease this petty behavior. Accept His Majesty's generous rewards and return to the residence with me. He glanced around the gathering, clearly wishing to avoid further public spectacle. I studied Elena thoughtfully, my brow creasing with puzzlement. She bore little resemblance to my expectations of a refined lady from an aristocratic family. Instead, she reminded me of a minor concubine in a wealthy household, one skilled in performing calculated vulnerability to win favor. Shouldn't a true lady of noble birth display quiet dignity and genuine grace? Seeing my continued silence, Elena bit her lip and made her final gambit. She dropped to her knees before me with a theatrical flourish. Sister Serafina, allow me to atone for my sins. If you won't forgive me, I shall remain kneeling until you do. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The onlookers' expressions showed growing disdain, as if Elena's generous gesture of apology to a mere countrywoman demonstrated remarkable magnanimity, while my hesitation revealed inexcusable ingratitude. Finally, I spoke. Very well, kneel here for 3 days and 3 nights, and I shall forgive you completely. Furthermore, I'll willingly return to your residence. Whether as concubine or servant, I'll accept any position without complaint. My gaze fixed upon Elena with unmistakable mockery. A person's word is their bond. Do you dare take responsibility for your promises? Elena's confident expression froze. Before she could respond, Adrian's anger erupted. Serafina, Elena's constitution is delicate. How can you make such unreasonable demands? The surrounding courtiers joined their critical voices to his. I turned to face him squarely. Elena herself declared she would kneel until forgiven. I've merely specified 3 days rather than leaving the duration open. Ended, instead of thanking me for this mercy, you complain? Are her apologies merely empty words designed for public performance, a way to showcase her supposed magnanimity while harboring no genuine remorse whatsoever? My gaze swept the assembled crowd. If such behavior is acceptable, then any murderer or criminal need only offer casual apologies. Why maintain courts of justice or government tribunals at all? Adrian's face flushed with embarrassment, leaving him temporarily speechless. Very well, I'll kneel, Elena suddenly declared. Her expression suggested deep personal injury. If Sister Serafina demands it, I shall comply. Please don't make things difficult for Adrian. She straightened her spine with apparent determination. Elena, rise at once. You need not demean yourself before her. Adrian rushed forward, gathering Elena protectively in his arms with obvious tenderness. I laughed coldly, too disgusted by their performance to watch further. I hope you prove true to your word. With that dismissal, I departed without another glance. Naturally, Elena failed to maintain her vigorous resolve. Initially, she knelt with apparent stoicism, refusing all entreaties to abandon her position. Within a short time, however, she conveniently fainted from physical weakness. Adrian swept her into his arms and rushed her back to the residence. Soon after, Rumors spread that she had fallen gravely ill from my cruel persecution. This successfully garnered widespread sympathy for her plight. I learned none of these details at the time, nor would I have cared. Instead, I had entered the capital's finest establishment, the Golden Phoenix Pavilion. The tavern buzzed with animated conversations and clinking cups. A storyteller commanded attention from his elevated platform, weaving tales with masterful eloquence. I secured a private chamber overlooking the street and settled in to watch the world below. Wave after wave of applause rose from the main hall. Once the performance concluded, the storyteller appeared at my door. Lady Song. Marcus entered with a respectful bow. He was originally a scholar traveling to the capital for imperial examinations, earning money through storytelling to support his modest circumstances. My successful appearance at the palace banquet and the subsequent imperial rewards owed much to his assistance. When Adrian brought me to the capital, he had kept the details private. The public knew only that the third prince had vanished for 2 years before his miraculous return by divine providence. More specific information remained unknown to outsiders. So when I fled Adrian's residence that day, my first stop after purchasing travel supplies was finding Marcus. I paid him generously to craft and disseminate the story of how I had saved Adrian's life. The narrative emphasized Adrian's ingratitude and faithless betrayal of the woman who had rescued him. Royal secrets naturally drew intense interest, particularly when involving the recently returned third prince. The tale spread rapidly through every street and marketplace, eventually reaching the palace itself. The imperial summons to attend the banquet arrived shortly thereafter. Only then did Adrian realize what had transpired. "Did you arrange for these rumors to spread?" His eyes held a mixture of surprise and confusion, as if amazed by my capabilities. But the emotion lasted merely a moment. After receiving my confirmation, deep exhaustion and irritation replaced his brief wonder. "Seraphina, given your humble origins, even with these stories circulating, and your audience with Father Emperor, marriage as my principal consort remains impossible. Elena has generously agreed to accept you as concubine. Why can't you be satisfied with such fortune?" How absurd. He still believed my actions stemmed from desire for the title of imperial princess consort, rather than my determination to escape him entirely. One cannot wake someone who chooses to sleep. His shock at the palace banquet, when I rejected the marriage decree, made perfect sense, yet my ambitions extended far beyond his limited understanding. Marcus wore his customary gentle smile. "Congratulations on your newfound freedom, Lady Song." I returned his courtesy with equal respect. "Your assistance made everything possible." "I am deeply grateful." Marcus waved dismissively. "Rather, I should thank you. Without your plan, the first prince would never have noticed my talents." I smiled without commenting, though his words highlighted a crucial element in our success. Our strategy had indeed benefited from an unexpected ally. First Prince Alexander. Though His Majesty had fathered numerous sons, only First Prince Alexander and Third Prince Adrian possessed realistic claims to the throne. The remaining princes had either died young or remained too immature for consideration. Prince Alexander, despite his legitimate birth, had never earned their father's favor. Adrian, though born to a concubine, enjoyed the emperor's clear preference. Their rivalry had long since escalated to deadly proportions. Rumors even suggested that Alexander had orchestrated the assassination attempt that led to Adrian's 2-year disappearance, though the first prince vehemently denied involvement. Regardless of past events, Adrian's safe return had certainly increased pressure on his elder brother. When stories of Adrian's dishonorable conduct suddenly appeared among the common people, Alexander naturally seized the opportunity to amplify the scandal. His influence brought the matter before His Majesty, securing my imperial audience. Simultaneously, Marcus's storytelling skills caught Alexander's attention, earning him a position among the first prince's advisors. Marcus now basked in newfound prominence and opportunity. I regarded him thoughtfully. "What brings you here today?" His expression grew serious. "His Highness the First Prince wishes to meet with you." Marcus had come well prepared, bringing servants' clothing from the First Prince's household. His tone brooked no argument. This was not a request but a command. I sighed resignedly and followed him from the tavern. When I encountered First Prince Alexander, he was taking his daily medicine. His lean frame and sharp features resembled Adrian's, though he stood somewhat taller. Rumors spoke of his years, long childless marriage, a source of considerable anxiety. A woman in elegant but understated palace robes attended him devotively. Her appearance was pleasant rather than striking, yet Alexander clearly valued her presence highly. His expression softened noticeably when addressing her. "This is side consort Lydia," Marcus whispered. I nodded in recognition. Princess Lydia's reputation was well known throughout the capital. Born a mere servant, she had somehow won the First Prince's devoted affection. I offered proper courtesies to both of them. Alexander slowly raised his head. "Lady Song need not stand on ceremony. Do you understand why I summoned you?" "This humble woman does not know," I replied obediently. In truth, I understood perfectly. He wished to assess whether I might prove useful to his interests. Alexander studied me intently. "My younger brother went to great lengths bringing you to the capital. He must value you highly." I kept my eyes lowered respectfully. "Your Highness speaks in jest. Everyone knows the third prince and Lady Elena, our childhood companions destined for marriage." Alexander smiled with mysterious meaning, before changing subjects. "I've heard you possess exceptional medical skills. I've remained childless for many years. Would you examine me and offer your professional opinion?" He extended his hand toward me. After brief hesitation, I placed my fingers against his wrist to feel his pulse. "What is your assessment?" he asked when I withdrew my hand. I curtsied deeply. "This humble woman's limited knowledge provides no solutions for your Highness's concerns." Alexander's expression remained unchanged, though disappointment flickered in his depths. After a long pause, he exhaled slowly. "Very well, you may go, Lady Song." I rose promptly to leave. As I departed, I glanced toward Princess Lydia, who nodded kindly in farewell. During our return journey, Marcus made pointed observations. "The First Prince grows truly desperate." Regarding Alexander's domestic situation, countless rumors circulated among the people. But he had not always been childless. 5 years earlier, Princess Lydia had delivered a son, the first imperial grandson. This achievement elevated her from servant to side consort. Tragically, the child died from fever before his 2nd birthday. 3 years ago, Princess Lydia conceived again, only to miscarry during her 5th month, due to household conflicts. Since then, no woman in Alexander's residence, from princess consort to lowest concubine, had quickened with child. Given Alexander's already tenuous standing with His Majesty, continued childlessness would eliminate any possibility of inheritance. His growing desperation was understandable. I pondered these matters when Marcus whispered something that made me pay closer attention. "He deserves this fate," he said quietly. I looked up sharply to see hatred burning in his eyes like physical flames. "Be careful with your words, Marcus," I cautioned softly. Marcus said nothing further, his expression returning to its usual pleasant demeanor. I too remained silent, as if our exchange had never occurred. We continued as near strangers who had met only recently. Marcus escorted me to an elegant residence. The property His Majesty had granted me. Palace officials had provided the details upon my departure from court. The gold, silver, and land grants had also been processed and transferred to my name. Only the request for male companions had been diplomatically declined, though His Majesty would not provide male servants. He had granted permission for me to establish an independent household and take a husband if I chose. The residence occupied an excellent location, surrounded by prosperous if not aristocratic neighbors. I invited Marcus inside with playful casualness. Would you consider becoming my companion? His obvious surprise at this suggestion made me tilt my head toward the street behind us. He glanced back and understanding dawned in his expression. With newfound intimacy, he replied, Lady Song honors me beyond measure. I would be fortunate indeed. We smiled at each other with apparent warmth. As we climbed the front steps, I seemed to lose my balance, swaying toward the side. Marcus quickly steadied me with his arm. From behind, it appeared I had stumbled directly into his embrace. At that precise moment, an angry shout rang out. What do you think you are doing? Adrian had finally emerged from hiding. I stepped away from Marcus's support and offered Adrian a respectful curtsy. Marcus also bowed properly, but Adrian strode directly toward us, shoving Marcus backward with considerable force. The scholar stumbled and fell to the ground with obvious pain. I rushed to help Marcus stand, then turned to glare at Adrian with unconcealed anger. Your Highness. What is the meaning of this assault? Adrian looked stricken, his disbelief evident. You defend him against me. I ignored his wounded expression, focusing instead on checking Marcus for injuries. Adrian's agitation increased at my obvious concern. He seized my arm roughly. Don't touch him, don't look at him. I shook off his grip coldly, meeting his furious gaze with contempt. On what authority do you make such demands, Adrian? Don't forget, His Majesty's word is law. We share no connection whatsoever. Serafina, how can you? Adrian's frown deepened as he struggled for words. He opened and closed his mouth several times before anger overcame speech entirely. With a final frustrated gesture, he stormed away in obvious defeat. Marcus watched his retreating figure with genuine satisfaction. Our plan proceeds exactly as hoped. My hand moved unconsciously to rest upon my slightly rounded abdomen. I offered no reply. The next day brought news from my residence that I was seeking a husband. Regardless of family background or social status, all interested parties were welcome to arrange meetings through matchmakers. This announcement spread through the capital like wildfire, becoming the source of considerable amusement. I remained secluded within my walls, allowing events to develop naturally. My gates stayed open to receive an endless parade of marriage brokers, confirming the rumor's authenticity. This continued for half a month. During this period, Adrian visited once more to demand explanations for my behavior. Serafina, have you no concern for your reputation? His expression suggested genuine anguish. I laughed lightly. Your Highness believes I still possess a reputation worth protecting? Adrian fell silent momentarily. Thanks largely to Elena's efforts, public opinion had turned against me. Stories circulated describing me as vindictive, petty, and maliciously ungrateful. Her recent collapse had provided ample opportunity for embellishment and dramatic enhancement. Adrian could not possibly be ignorant of these campaigns, yet he had allowed them to continue unchecked. Recognizing his culpability, he avoided my direct gaze, while still maintaining his critical tone. Even so, shouldn't you remain quietly at home, cultivating virtue and refinement? This spectacle only worsens your standing. Serafina, what are you truly trying to accomplish? My response was measured and cool. Your Highness need not concern himself with my affairs. Perhaps your time would be better spent attending your intended bride, Lady Elena. Otherwise, she might spread more rumors about my shameless attempts to seduce you. That would indeed damage my reputation further." Adrian's voice grew strained. "Elena would never." I said nothing, simply fixing him with an unwavering stare. Under my steady regard, Adrian's protestations died away. His departure carried all the hallmarks of a hasty retreat. What did I truly hope to accomplish? Not only Adrian wondered this. Elena, who observed my activities with growing anxiety, and first Prince Alexander, whose curiosity about my motives continued to grow, all sought answers. When Adrian failed to learn my intentions directly, he left in obvious distress. For days afterward, his distraction was apparent to all who encountered him. Soon enough, however, clarity would come. Among my many suitors was a gambling addict who squandered his days in idleness and vice. His family had once operated a medical clinic before his destructive habits consumed their wealth. His interest focused entirely on my property and land grants. When I rejected his suit, his wounded pride transformed into rage. Initially, Adrian's political power kept him cautiously silent, but after consuming several bottles of wine, reckless anger loosened his tongue completely. "She is at least 2 or 3 months pregnant," he declared loudly to anyone who would listen. "The scheming woman wants to find some fool to father her bastard child." Some unknown in the crowd, not yet understanding the implications, shook his head sympathetically. "Wonder whose child it might be." His words earned him a sharp blow to the skull. "Who else could it be?" The speaker pointed meaningfully skyward, indicating the palace. This revelation spread from person to person with remarkable speed. Soon Adrian arrived at my residence in a state of obvious excitement. I had instructed my guards beforehand to deny him entry, claiming I was indisposed to receive visitors, but a royal prince could hardly be deterred by household servants. My refusal was purely symbolic gesture. When Adrian finally broke through my defenses, he found me engaged in needlework. The tiny tiger head cap in my hands was both intricate and charming. Adrian stared for several moments before finding his voice. When he spoke, his tone carried unprecedented gentleness. "Why didn't you tell me about the pregnancy?" he asked, his words barely audible. I set aside my sewing to meet his gaze. "Why should I have told you?" Adrian's excitement was barely contained. "You are carrying my child. I am going to be a father." I lowered my head again. "Your Highness is mistaken. This child is not yours. Serafina, stop this stubborn denial." His attention fixed on my midsection. Though my loose clothing concealed obvious signs, his certainty was absolute. His expression softened with unmistakable tenderness. He exhaled slowly. "Serafina, come back with me." My laugh held bitter mockery. "Even if the child were yours, why would I return? To be imprisoned in your residence as your concubine, to submit to guidance and correction from your beloved Elena, to pay her daily respects and courtesies. My child would become an illegitimate offspring, forever inferior in status. And should I lose your favor, both child and I would become helpless victims of others' manipulation. Is this what you want for us?" My anger mounted with each accusation, as I stared directly into his eyes, demanding answers. Adrian looked away uncomfortably, his confidence wavering. "It won't be like that," he said with little conviction. "I'll protect you both. I promise." I laughed coldly. "How much truth lies in your Highness's promises? 3 months ago you swore we would be together forever, never to part. Yet now you prepare to become another woman's husband." Adrian seemed to absorb a physical blow. No words came in response. I waved dismissively, as if exhausted by the conversation. "If your highness has no further business, please leave." Adrian studied me for a long moment, then drew a deep breath, as if reaching some momentous decision. "Serafina, but none of your fears will come to pass. I will ensure our child achieves the highest possible status. Rest well and take care of yourself. I'll visit again soon." Adrian departed with what seemed like urgent purpose. I suspected his intentions involved the increasingly precarious political situation. His Majesty's health declined daily, and Adrian needed to strengthen his position for the succession struggle ahead. Soon Marcus brought news confirming my suspicions. "The wedding date has been moved up significantly," he reported, fanning himself with casual elegance. "Originally scheduled for next May, apparently the third prince requested the change himself." I smiled with mild interest, showing no particular concern. Marcus continued thoughtfully. "This pregnancy certainly motivated him." His expression grew knowing. "Years ago, Elena's father framed General Vincent, stealing the art of military strategy from the general's archives. Though our people eventually eliminated the entire Song family in revenge for General Vincent's death, the manual disappeared. Elena, the sole survivor, likely possesses it. The third prince's eagerness to marry her suggests he wants that manual for his conflict with the first prince. Clearly, he is tired of prolonging this struggle." Marcus's voice carried satisfaction. "Serafina, our plan nears completion." I allowed a slight smile to cross my features while cautioning. "Don't celebrate yet, many challenges remain." Marcus nodded in understanding. 1 month later, Adrian and Elena celebrated their wedding ceremony. Another fortnight passed before I received an unexpected visitor. Elena appeared in magnificent imperial robes, her hair arranged in the elaborate style of a married woman. Her retinue created an impressive display of wealth and status. Upon entering, she surveyed me with obvious superiority, her gaze lingering deliberately on my expanding waistline. After dismissing her attendants with an imperious gesture, she spoke with undisguised contempt. "I never suspected you possessed such cunning." I remained silent, wondering what had prompted this visit. Elena raised her chin like a victorious peacock displaying its plumage. "But what does your pregnancy matter?" Adrian himself insisted on advancing our wedding date. He wanted to marry me as quickly as possible. I frowned with growing perplexity. From our first meeting, Elena's behavior had struck me as petty and calculated. She reminded me of a common concubine in a wealthy household, rather than a refined lady of noble breeding. Her current visit seemed motivated purely by the desire to gloat. I had no patience for such games, and moved to end the conversation. "Lady Elena, if you have no other business, please leave. I do not welcome further visits." Elena's expression transformed instantly. "You should address me as third princess consort and kneel in proper respect." She raised her hand to strike me across the face. But having spent years gathering medicinal herbs in mountain terrain, my physical strength far exceeded that of a pampered palace lady. I easily caught her wrist and pushed her backward, sending her tumbling to the floor. "What are you doing?" a voice called from behind us. Adrian rushed forward, his expression grave at the sight before him. Elena threw herself into his arms with theatrical desperation. "Adrian, I only wanted to check on Sister Serafina's welfare, considering she carries your child. I never expected her to attack me." Adrian turned his gaze toward me. I laughed with bitter amusement. "What now? Have you newlyweds already found cause for conflict? Bringing your domestic disputes to my doorstep one after another?" Adrian avoided my eyes while looking down at Elena, whose tears flowed like spring rain. His voice carried obvious strain. "Elena, I saw everything that transpired. The sobbing stopped abruptly. Elena looked up in panic, attempting explanation. But Adrian we're returning home. Elena bit her lip, shooting me a venomous glare. Adrian faced me once more, seeming to struggle with unspoken words. Finally, he offered only simple courtesy. Serafina, please take care of yourself. I snorted derisively. Don't trouble yourselves with further visits. I'll manage perfectly well alone. Adrian said nothing more. After one final searching look, he turned to leave. True to my words, Adrian stayed away. The Emperor's critical condition required his full attention, as succession politics intensified into deadly earnest. Both first Prince Alexander and third Prince Adrian made their final preparations, their conflict escalating beyond mere political rivalry. The imperial court's bloody machinations created unrest throughout the common population. Marcus secretly informed me that Alexander had begun private negotiations with key military commanders, while Adrian pursued similar alliances. The possibility of open warfare grew daily, so I increased my personal security while maintaining the lowest possible profile. Adrian also discreetly assigned guards to protect me, understanding that his brother might attempt to use me and my unborn child as leverage against him. He made no effort to inform me of these arrangements, perhaps fearing my rejection. When my pregnancy reached 7 months, His Majesty passed away, naming third Prince Adrian as his successor. First Prince Alexander received the title of Prince Alexander and orders to depart for his assigned province. Alexander refused the imperial edict and questioned the will's authenticity. Under the pretense of eliminating court corruption, he raised rebellion against his brother's rule. The civil conflict lasted 2 months before peace returned. Adrian naturally emerged victorious. Alexander died in battle for his treasonous rebellion. Everyone in his household faced the same fate when imperial soldiers stormed the prince's residence. Chaos reigned throughout the compound. From noble consort to lowly servant, all fled in terror. After subduing the occupants, soldiers discovered 2 bodies in the side chambers. Palace personnel identified the male corpse as Marcus, Alexander's recently recruited advisor. The female was Princess Lydia, the first prince's beloved consort. Speculation about their presence together ranged from attempted assault to theft gone wrong during the household's collapse. Various theories circulated, but none warranted serious investigation. The dead could offer no explanations, making further inquiry pointless. While this dramatic conclusion unfolded across the capital, 2 figures disguised as vegetable merchants quietly entered my residence. Sister Lydia, Brother Marcus. I rushed forward as tears filled all our eyes. After composing ourselves, Princess Lydia spoke with quiet satisfaction. I killed Alexander with my own hands as planned. The mission is complete. Now everything depends on you. I nodded gravely as memories from years past surfaced. During Adrian and Alexander's youth, their rivalry had already begun manifesting in dangerous ways. His Majesty once faced assassination during a provincial tour, receiving near-fatal poisoning. The situation appeared hopeless. The current chancellor, Elena's father, advised Alexander to prepare for succession possibilities. Alexander secretly contacted General Vincent, who commanded border defenses, claiming Adrian harbored treasonous intentions that required military intervention in the capital. General Vincent, unaware of the deception and trusting his nephew Alexander implicitly, marched toward the imperial city. But Adrian and Chancellor Song had orchestrated the entire trap. Adrian possessed antidotes for His Majesty's condition from the beginning, while Chancellor Song had already pledged secret allegiance to the third prince. Everything designed to destroy both Alexander and General Vincent. Upon the general's arrival, he faced imperial accusations of treason and rebellion. Alexander, desperate to preserve himself, denied any communication with his uncle, claiming the general acted independently. General Vincent and his loyal officers died bearing false charges of sedition. Only we few survivors remained. Princess Lydia was originally an orphan from a border town whose parents perished in foreign raids. General Vincent had adopted and raised her as his own daughter. When the general met his unjust end, she barely escaped with her life. To avenge her adoptive father, she resumed her birth name and infiltrated Alexander's household. Marcus was the son of one of General Vincent's deputy commanders, as was my own adoptive father. Both men fought desperately to escape the massacre. The military physician Song, who became my adoptive father, managed to reach a remote village where we opened a medical clinic together. But his injuries proved fatal despite our efforts. Many other relatives of fallen soldiers scattered throughout the empire, some gathering intelligence while others waited in noble households for opportunities. Chancellor Song met swift justice from surviving loyalists, leaving 5-year-old Elena as the family's sole survivor. Now Alexander had joined his co-conspirator in death. Only Adrian remained. The day after Adrian's coronation, I delivered twins, a son and daughter. When news reached the palace, the new emperor rejoiced beyond measure. Soon rumors began circulating that His Majesty intended to name me Empress. This actually surprised me somewhat. I had expected concubine rank at most, not consideration for the highest position. But his intentions naturally met fierce resistance from court officials. Tradition demanded that the Empress title belong to Adrian's existing wife. Elena, a woman of my humble origins, could never claim such elevation, regardless of bearing imperial children. Adrian's determination proved remarkably stubborn. Elena's constant protests and emotional outbursts only increased his irritation with her eventually. The minister's opposition crumbled before imperial persistence. When our children reached their first month, I received the decree naming me Empress. During the coronation ceremony, Adrian gazed at me with unmistakable devotion. Serafina, this time I haven't broken my promise to you. I smiled in return. After the ceremonies concluded, I encountered Elena once more. To minimize criticism, Adrian had treated her generously, granting her the rank of imperial consort. Simultaneously, he issued another edict declaring the imperial consort's delicate health required palace confinement for recovery. In essence, elegant house arrest. When I met her, Elena's complexion was ghostly pale. She began with frantic screaming and accusations before collapsing in defeated exhaustion. "You've found me ridiculous from the beginning, haven't you?" she asked with hollow despair. Without waiting for response, she continued speaking as if to herself. She described her earliest memories of parental love and security before entering the palace at age 5. Life there meant constant dependency on others' charity. Upon arrival, her own aunt, noble consort Grace, had poisoned the child as part of some scheme against rival consorts. Throughout her youth, the same woman manipulated Elena for various court intrigues. She learned early how to project vulnerability and attach herself to powerful protectors. Finally, her composure shattered completely. I did everything for him. Why couldn't Adrian love me in return? I felt pity rather than hatred watching her breakdown. What purpose could be found in pursuing someone incapable of reciprocating? Yet perhaps this described many women's survival strategy in our world. I offered no comfort as I turned, and left Elena to her solitude. Life in the palace proved far more tranquil than previous experiences. Though Adrian's abilities as emperor were unremarkable, he governed without cruelty or incompetence. My own position grew increasingly secure. Initial doubts about whether a countrywoman could fulfill imperial duties proved unfounded. My performance exceeded expectations. Adrian's conspicuous support played a crucial role in this success. Perhaps guilt over past treatment motivated his careful attention. He showed unwavering devotion, refusing to expand his harem while honoring my parents with posthumous recognition. His affection for our children was equally evident. But when the twins reached their 5th year, Adrian's health began declining mysteriously. The imperial physicians could identify no specific cause, attributing his condition to excessive work demands and prescribing more rest. Though my medical knowledge couldn't match the court doctors, I was capable of basic care and nursing. When he reviewed reports and handled state business, I often remained at his side. Gradually, I became familiar with governmental affairs and administrative procedures. Eventually, during Adrian's periods of unconsciousness, I began handling the imperial correspondence myself. Despite the physician's efforts, his condition continued deteriorating. The end came on a day when his spirits seemed unusually bright. He even requested attendants carry him to the imperial gardens so we might enjoy the spring scenery together. Pointing to a potted orchid, he asked, "Do you remember our first meeting?" I nodded silently. When I first regained consciousness, my body ached terribly. Opening my eyes, I saw you standing before me holding fresh orchid blossoms. I truly believed I was seeing a celestial being. From that moment, among countless flowers, he cherished only orchids. I ordered gardeners to transplant orchids from that mountain to the palace grounds. Though they survived, none have ever bloomed again. Serafina, do you think I made a mistake? Would the orchids prefer their valley home? His intense gaze suggested he genuinely wanted an answer. Under his searching look, I slowly shook my head. Orchids in their valley face natural disasters, insect damage, and foraging birds. Here, they receive constant care without fear of storms or frost. I believe they prefer the palace to their mountain home. Adrian paused thoughtfully, tears seeming to gather in his eyes. Serafina, is there anything else you wish to say to me? His question puzzled me greatly. I sat in contemplative silence before finally shaking my head. Nothing. He stared blankly for several moments, then smiled with apparent peace. Slowly, his eyes closed. I remained quietly beside him, feeling his breathing grow shallow until it ceased entirely. A deep sigh escaped my lips. Adrian's final testament named our young son heir while appointing me regent during the child's minority. Additionally, while organizing his personal effects, I discovered something significant. A secret letter revealed that Adrian had accidentally uncovered the truth about my identity while arranging posthumous honors for my parents. My adoptive father and I shared no blood relationship. Furthermore, the investigation had revealed his true identity as General Vincent's military physician. Reading this, my expression grew melancholy as I recalled our final conversation. Now I understood why he had asked that particular question. He had known all along, known that our meeting was orchestrated from the beginning. Summonon had arranged his attempted assassination, then positioned me to rescue him. His memory loss resulted from a southern poison that ensured his emotional attachment to me before the antidote restored his awareness. Love creates the strongest chains of all. I had deliberately forged those bonds. These memories would become my ultimate weapons against him. Sitting in the throne room's highest position, facing the assembled court ministers, my thoughts turned to my adoptive father. He had died in terrible humiliation. A man who spent his life defending his country and protecting its people was brutally destroyed by those he had served. He could only cry out in anguished protest against imperial injustice and dynastic corruption. Watching his suffering, I had resolved that if the emperor was truly incompetent, then I would assume that role myself. If the dynasty was genuinely corrupt, then I would cleanse the entire court. Such transformation required considerable time and energy, so even though I bore only a daughter, I had arranged for a son to enter the palace. Even though Adrian might have lived longer, I chose to poison him when the moment was right. Like orchids removed from their valley homes, they lose their ability to bloom. I had to sacrifice certain things to achieve my goals. The truth was both simple and complex. Revenge had been my purpose from the very beginning. And now, with the empire finally within my grasp, that long-awaited justice would finally be served.